And welcome back to We Burn Blue. I'm Prashant, I'm one of your hosts. And Sharon, man, what a time to start a podcast. We said it's never a dull moment, but I don't think any of us saw this coming, eh?
Yeah, I know, man. I mean, I was literally on holiday right before the news dropped, and I'm just glad that Chelsea waited until after I was back to drop the next episode in the saga that is this football club.
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, our pod program, so to speak, has taken a bit of a hit. We did plan to discuss the transfer window at length, and obviously, we mentioned a tactical deep dive, but that's one of the first casualties of the Chelsea civil war.
Yeah, well said, man. I think there's going to be a few more casualties to come, but I guess we'll see how things pan out. Um, just for those who are living under a rock or just have more of a social life than Prashant and I, um, you may not be aware then that the very young consortium, I say young because the consortium only took over the club in 2022. So 2 years into their ownership, the consortium's also already falling out with each other. The consortium's made up of two major shareholders or major groups of shareholders, and yeah, they've kind of fallen out with each other, and there's talk of each one fighting for each other's shares, and it's going to be a very interesting, especially if you're a neutral or an anti-Chelsea fan, very interesting next couple of months at least. But how does the current structure look like? What does it look like today?
Yeah, so I always knew it was a consortium with multiple people involved, but now thanks to this, I know a little bit more of the specifics. So we have Boehly, who was always the front man of the consortium from the start. Obviously, he's a co-owner of Los Angeles Dodgers as well and runs Elridge Industries. You have Clearlake Capital, which is a private equity firm that's led by Begdad Iqbali and Jose Feliciano. And then you have two other members who are not so commonly known. You've got Hans-Jörg Weiss, a Swiss billionaire, and Mark Walter, an American businessman. I believe he's the CEO of Guggenheim. So that's your consortium of five people. Clear Lake are obviously the majority stakeholder. They have 61.5% of the shares in the company, and those are Class A shares. The remaining 38.5% is split. And from what I understand, Bowley has the majority of that, which is 13%. So he's the largest individual stakeholder. And then Weiss and Walter have the remaining 25-ish% split between them. So that's the makeup of shareholders. Bowley's and the other two have Class B shares versus Class A for Clear Lake.
So, I mean, we've seen uh, Bowley has essentially been the face of the project, right? Especially at takeover time 2 years ago.
Right.
He was his name was up in lights. But recently, the Clear Lake, I guess the two heads of Clear Lake Capital on this project have come to the front, to the fore, right?
Yeah, so Bowley was very present at the start, at the onset, when leading the bid and then obviously coming in as the interim sporting director. And now it seems he's sort of taken a step back and Iqbali has been more present for sure. But interestingly, all three of them have equal say on major decisions. So that's Bowley and the player like duo of Iqbali and Feliciano have to sign off on all major decisions, including transfers and any other club decisions. All five of them sit on the board of directors. Apparently, they rotate the chairman position of the board every 5 years. So currently, Bowley is the chairman. He's the first chairman, which is effective from the sale in 2022 till 2027, a 5 year period. And then after that, I think Clear Lake then decides to nominate another chairman of the board. So that is something that they have where every 5 years they will be rotating the chairman position.
How do you think that affects the continuity at the club? Because I mean, look, this is not like presidential terms of a country, right? I mean, they they've also signed new players, and some of the contracts they're handing out are for 8 years in one shot. So I don't. I don't really understand how today, let's say Bowley signed Nicholas Jackson or whatever it is, handing out new contracts to Cole Palmer, and he's tied them up for the next 9 years or whatever it is. Does the next incumbent in 2027 get to shake things up again? Or how do they think that's going to work?
So I think in corporate structure, it's not unheard of for a chairman to be changing. As long as you're aligned in the way of operating, there should be continuity in theory. Now, the way we're set up, you have all five owners on the board of directors and then some other people as well. You've got a COO and president who, in Jason Gannon, who was elevated to president after the previous CEO left. You've got Joe Shields, of course, co-director of recruitment and talent. You have a director of sporting operations, or rather football operations. And David Barnard, you have two sporting directors. And of course, then there's the head coach and his team, right? For both the men's and the women's setup, you have the coaching setup. So if all these people are aligned on the identity, the playing style, their transfer approach, and then similarly, you have structures in place for your commercials, your stadium, your ticketing. As long as there's synergy, a changing chairman shouldn't really affect things. But I think it's more pertinent to be discussing this now because it seems like that alignment and synergy is broken 2 years in, right?
Exactly.
Initially, yeah.
That's exactly the point, right? This whole idea of passing over the responsibility of chairmanship and leading the club every 5 years. It only works if everybody is on singing off the same hymn sheet, right? So I guess now we've reached that stage where okay, maybe that was never really going to work out because the two let's say the two heads that are budding right now, they're extremely different, right, in the way they would approach running the club. And we do have some insight on this. So why don't you tell us a bit about how Bowley would run the club versus the Clear Lake guys in Eghbali and Feliciano?
Yeah, there definitely is a difference in the way they do approach things. So we've seen from Bowley's approach at Dodgers, he will eventually have the right people installed at the different levels and allow them to sort of run operations while he has a say on the major decisions. And I think that was evident from how he sort of stepped back after we have, Paul Winstanley and Lon Stewart come in as the sporting directors. He stepped back from that role and he's involved in terms of maybe transfers from a top level, but in the day to day, he prefers to let his people run the show. Whereas with Iqbali, who is basically the face of Clear Lake, he seems to be a lot more hands-on and micromanagerial in his approach. There's obviously we've read reports of him being in the dressing room after matches, traveling for negotiations with the likes of Benfica for Enzo, Napoli for Osimhen, and even we saw him with Sancho the other day, right? When Sancho was signed. So Egbali seems to be more hands-on and wants to be involved in the nitty-gritties, and Bowley seems to be more hands-off, is my sense. And that sort of split then is affecting how they're approaching other decisions with the club as well, right? So what do you make of their approach so far, and what is your sense?
I think we can look back at their initial approach and try to find signs of potential, dispute behind the scenes because I mean there is some evidence, granted it's quite a biased look back, because we're doing it in
Hmm.
hindsight. But if you look at, for instance, the way they've approached the transfer strategy, um, I mean it's quite evident that again, Bowley and Iqbali would have differing ways of doing things. And that's kind of how you end up with a squad that could amount to nearly 40 plus players or 45. And at the same time, not all players are going to play in the manager's system, let alone in the starting 11. Yet you still buy more players. I think it's the approach is not let's say being coordinated. It's quite haphazard, and it looks like there's a lack of synchronization at the top, and people are just kind of pulling the trigger on whatever they feel like is may or may not work out. It feels like a gamble. So yeah, from that aspect, I think it's a clear sign that there is no alignment, and there's definitely some shakiness at the top. Even from the start, you could see that in their approach. Um, and I don't know whether there were any other aspects of the club where we could um, kind of highlight this trend. What do you think?
Yeah, I think definitely the one glaring the one that's really staring us in the face would be commercially, right? They claimed at the start that the club was being um, not run well under the previous owners. And I think it's the first time that I can remember, aside from obviously last season, where it was resolved fairly quickly, but it's the first time we're a month into a new season and there is no front of shirt sponsor. And you could argue that there's a lot of different reasons for that, from not getting European, qualification to wanting a better value, but it doesn't change the fact that we are without a front of shirt sponsor. And I just think that that's really, really indicative of the fact that, yeah, they set out with one particular agenda and they've really fallen flat on that respect.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I wouldn't sponsor a team in the Europa Conference League either, just for the record, even though we are in Europe, Prashant. So I think one other thing is the culture has completely disintegrated. I don't feel like the club has any sort of identity on and off the pitch beyond tactically, where they brought Maresca in. You look at decades gone by, that spine of Czech, Terry, Lampard, and Drogba. I mean, they were leaders. At that time, Chelsea's mental abilities were as good as their technical and physical abilities. I mean, they were extremely resilient. And then we had a period where Hazard was the face of the club, and it was all about flair and passion for the game. Now, I mean, they've gotten rid of so many of the staff, but also, I guess, even the academy players, um, who are who've basically grown up in the system. Um, and again, I can't imagine that they were all completely aligned on this trajectory. I think, again, getting rid of players like Gallagher is to fund whatever purchases they want to make this season. But again, for one Gallagher sale, you're making five different purchases. It's crazy, it's scattergun, and it's just an indication of massive misalignment. But anyway, I think we've criticized their initial sort of approach to the club enough, and hopefully they rectified the commercial side. The next question would be whether, you would prefer to go forward with Boehly or with Clear Lake. Any feedback on that? Any thoughts?
Personally, I'm still not sure. I think I'm leaning slightly towards Bowley from what I'm reading, but I can't say I want one over the other. Going by what I'm reading from fans and all, I think it seems to be the general consensus where, yeah, everyone says this shouldn't have happened, but if it had to happen, then they're picking sides, and they're picking sides based on personal biases and, media briefings, which are getting increasingly ugly and honestly a little bit immature as well. It's kind of embarrassing, to be fair. Personally, like I said, I think I'm leaning Team Bowley, still not sure. Which side of this are you on, man?
I don't know. I want it to be done with ASAP, and I think that will be the same answer you get from pretty much 100% of Chelsea fans is whatever happens, we can't afford for this to be dragged out. Whoever was responsible for maybe the more sensible approach and who's going to give the manager the actual 5 or 6 seasons, whatever he's contracted to actually develop uh, a consistent playing team and playing style, that's the person who I want. And I have a feeling that's Bowley. Like you said, but Bowley is slightly more hands off. He believes in putting the right people in place to
Yeah,
develop the club. He's
yeah.
not pretending like he knows how to do everything. So in that regard, I would say, yeah, I kind of back him more. If Eghbali is going to take over and be there day to day, I don't see Maresca lasting a season or two if he doesn't win anything. Um, so again, that's kind of my long answer to this is got the more I would actually say that's more of a pragmatic approach. I kind of like the way Liverpool approached their summer, whether they had a choice or not. I know
Mm.
the manager came in and said that he wanted to see how the playing staff, like what level the playing staff were at, and I agree with that approach. Um, from a personal point of view. But yeah, ultimately, it just needs to wrap up quickly. Because the worst thing that can happen for the club, and we've pointed out, clear commercial issues which are going to impact the balance sheet, right? And um, it's going to be a detrimental impact to PSR if we are without a front of shirt sponsor, and if the stadium project doesn't move forward. We're really talking about worst case scenario where we're still leaving money on the table, and on the flip side, this thing is dragging out and people still don't know where they stand within the club. It makes the option of Chelsea very, very unattractive. Granted, we don't have any space to attract anyone anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's just not going to be great as a fan for the next season if this continues. So,
We might eventually see a knock-on effect on the pitch as well, where results are being affected because this is just dominating all conversation and disrupting, the mental space of players. So, like you said, it needs to resolve ASAP. And as things stand, it's just ugly.
yeah, so now, we've covered, I guess, what we can about Chelsea off the pitch because, as usual, that's dominating the headlines for this club. But bringing us back to on the pitch, where they try and make us cry in other ways. What did you make of, I guess, the first month or the first few weeks of competitive performances?
Yeah, so we've played what, 3 games in the Premier League. We're through in the Conference League. I think I am encouraged by what I'm seeing attack-wise. I think defensively, we're still having a couple of these brain farts where we seem to be just shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean,
Yeah, man. I mean, it's not ideal. I don't know how a manager. I don't really care if you're a manager who prefers to have the ball over, anything else, right? Your defense is possession. But my God, man, like I don't know how he can sit on the bench and watch that crap at the back, man. Defenses win titles, mate.
I
So,
was about to say
um,
just that. Yeah. I mean, look, if we
yeah,
had to go
man.
game by game, I mean, we started off obviously with the home loss to City, and that's okay. Very quickly, what were your thoughts on that?
I saw some positives for sure, but dude, like you said, we're shooting ourselves in the foot by playing
Yeah,
out from the back the way we
yeah,
do. And the way we're setting up, if you're losing the ball back there, half your team is on the other side of the pitch or on the halfway line. So naturally you're exposed.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think another aspect with the City game was we just didn't seem to take our chances, which is, I mean, there were clear opportunities to level it 1-0 down, and that changes the whole complexion of the game. And you go on to then make another error and go down 2-0, and it's just yeah. And I think then on to Wolves, where it was a scoreline that flatters. I want to say 6-2 win.
The XG was a huge anomaly, not just in general, but for Chelsea specifically, who underperformed XG last year.
Yeah.
We had an XG of 1.65 and we scored 6 goals. Yeah, man, I don't think we'll be seeing that happen again this season.
But even at points during that game, it felt like, oh, we're in for the same, right? We were 1-0 up, and then again, another sort of sloppy goal to concede. 2-1 up, again, it's 2-2. And then that surge, man, second half, I don't know, Noni Madueke just turned up.
It's a team that lacks balance, but it's a blitz team, right?
Yeah.
We can go 4-0 down or 4-0 up in seconds or in minutes.
At the same time, it's something I'm encouraged by, especially the attack movements. I think I've seen much quicker transitions up the pitch and much more fluid play that I think it's something Poch was trying to do that I just don't think he was able to click into gear. I'm seeing that click with these guys. Madueke, funnily enough, is someone we thought might not be here, but here he is and he's got his hat trick, so that's kind of cool.
When you brought that up towards the end of the British window, that he was potentially leaving, I was shocked because he literally played entirely
Yeah,
on the right wing in the preseason. So I didn't see the sense in that, but I never normally see the sense in Chelsea. But just on that game, right, and your points on Pochettino, I totally agree. And we had discussed when Maresca was first appointed, I had said to you that this guy is like a slow burner. Like he's like Pep. They want to control the ball as much as possible. So
yes.
I wonder how he's going to use our extremely talented transitional players. Counter-attacking football is something Chelsea fans are used to anyway. So I mean, are we going to have to sacrifice like the culture, which is counter-attack, but then also looking at players like Noni and Jackson who are rapid, right? And very good, very hard runners off the ball. They like to run in behind as well as to feet. Um, but it's good to see that he's allowing the players that freedom to get the ball forward quickly when they see the opportunity.
Yeah, you can see some of the new talent coming in and like bringing their own dimension. Like shout out to João Felix. I still think yes, we got to see how he's going to do. But getting that debut goal, that was a good goal he got. I mean, it was a very nice late run into the box, top corner finish
You
from
gotta, dude, you gotta
João
think with a
Felix.
finish like that, we could have done with him against City, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, fair, fair, yeah.
Yeah.
But then again,
And in full disclosure, I have not watched the Palace game yet. I plan
okay,
to
I was
catch
just going
up.
to say, yeah, with Palace, of course, 1-1 draw, but I think now there he seemed to be not doing too much different from Jackson, and you might probably be able to see this more with your sort of tactical focused eye. 1-1 draw, I think. So there was a sense that we were just not able to sort of absorb their pressure. We had a really good first half and we could have gone up, and then in the second half, Palace really turned it up, and we ended up conceding. And then Jackson did have another moment just to take it ahead, and he didn't. And when Felix did come on, it seemed like he was not really offering anything different and sort of making the same runs into the channel that Jackson was, which was sort of redundant, you know. But that's I mean that's the Premier League so far. I think I was more optimistic. You said 2 points on the board. So I think we're gonna call it like quits there. We're at 4 points out of a possible nine.
Yeah, what was your points prediction?
I was calling draw to City and 2 wins, so I was closer to
Okay.
7. But
Yeah,
I mean, I I think Palace could have been a win. City a draw was optimistic always, but I think
it's
it's
just better in life not to have hope and just have lower expectations, Prashant.
yeah, that's
So
true. That's
just
true,
keep that
Sean.
in mind.
Yes. So we have Maresca still waiting for a home Premier League win. Obviously, we did get the European win. We beat Servette 3-2 on aggregate. And your view on that, on the two legs?
I mean, I think I had also said in our first pod that we were gonna scrape through. I hope I wasn't too confident because I never really am with the team. But yeah, man, first leg, pretty standard stuff. I think both legs he's basically trying to give minutes to a lot of players who are not getting it in the Prem. So naturally, you're expecting it to be disjointed. Even in possession, even though we are, the better team, you still need to be at a certain level to play the style he wants to play. So
Mm.
if you're constantly taking risks at the back with players who don't know or don't normally play with each other, they don't have that chemistry or know the style, it's a huge risk. So I think that's why the result is just it's good enough. It gets you through and it gives you minutes. That's the trade-off here that he's taken.
Yeah. No, and I think he also had some comments about the quality of the pitch being really shit. And from what I saw of the match, yeah, it wasn't a great looking pitch. But I mean, let's not make excuses. So yeah, we're through. I think that's what matters the most. Our first game is versus Ghent, and we'll cover the Conference League and the potential opponents we have there closer, and of course the big Conference League squad mission of Cole Palmer closer to the day.
What
Yeah,
a tease.
load management, right? It's all about the load management.
Yeah. Yeah. See, now we're going down a very different path that this podcast should not go down. So we'll leave the innuendo there. Why don't we jump into some match previews, man? So we can
Yeah,
wrap this up.
yeah. Yeah, so obviously international break underway. We're back in action next week. Bournemouth on the 15th of September. Bournemouth's recent form has been, well, it's been mixed. They had two draws, a draw versus Forest, a draw versus Newcastle, which is a big result for them, I guess, and then a win versus Everton, who looked destined to go down. What do you think?
Yeah, so I think we lose this game, unfortunately. But yeah, it's mainly looking at that defense, man. We are waiting to concede 3, 4 goals to a transitional team that soak up pressure. I mean, actually, you could press us high up the pitch, and we'd just give the ball to you anyway. So no matter which style of play Andoni sets us out with, I think he's got very pacey players who will punish us, and we will give them the opportunity to. And yeah, we'll probably score, but I'm not sure we've got this in the bag. So yeah, what do you have us down doing in this game?
Yeah, so I think you're right. Defensively, we are looking a bit suspect. I'm hoping he uses the international break to really work with the team and sort out the defense. But of course, you have the Malo Gusto injury, which is not going to help things. Reese was scheduled, last I read, to be back after the international break, but I don't know if he'll be ready to play 90. I still would hope that we get a win. It's Bournemouth after all, but yeah, I'm going to say conservatively a draw.
Okay. Well, don't stop being conservative on my behalf now, man. Someone has to be the light of sunshine in this podcast, bro.
Let's call it a draw for now. We have obviously then West Ham the next week, 21st September, who again lost to Villa. They beat Palace and then they lost to City. I think we beat West Ham. I know that they always have that height advantage, so check in the box on a corner. But I think that we will beat them. I think the likes of Fafana and Colwell will be able to sort of, hold up. I think I have to acknowledge the fact that Fafana and Colwell have looked a little better. They have been good defensively in terms of one-on-ones. It's just been those brain farts. I wouldn't say if we can stop those brain farts, I think we're good.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, big if, right? Because again, these we're also talking about young players who need to make the mistakes at certain points so that they can progress with their development. So, yeah, on that note, I am gonna actually something in my head is saying draw for West Ham Chelsea, London derby. So you would expect Maresca to put the heat on the players as well, and I think yeah, it should be an interesting watch that game. And I'm hoping that none of these Chelsea games are boring because yeah, so far so good on that in that regard. Again, I haven't seen Palace, but maybe Servette was a bit quiet, but as I said, it's to be expected. We do have the small matter of the League Cup, the Carabao Cup, after West Ham. I think we're both going with wins on that one against Barrow at
Yeah.
home.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
should be a
So
comfortable win, I think.
yeah, and then last fixture of September is at home against Brighton,
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
normally do pretty well against us, right?
Yeah, I think so. Again, Brighton, a win against Everton on the road, a home win against United, and then a draw versus Arsenal as well. I think Brighton is going to be the toughest of the next four fixtures for us. This new manager, 31-year-old, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but seems to be doing some good stuff. And I think it's not going to be an easy one. I think call it a draw. And I mean, I'd be happy if we got a draw there.
Yeah, so Brighton also big spenders this summer. I saw somewhere it's close to 160 mil in total. And
I'll
they
have to
are, I
check that.
think they're still trying to net that off. While other European windows are, and I guess Saudi's window is still open. But with a 31-year-old manager, I think that guy's living the dream. He's basically playing football manager at this point. So I'd love to be in his shoes, and I have a feeling, man. I have a feeling they're gonna nick one later on. It's gonna be 2-1 to Brighton. I don't want this to happen, obviously, but the home games, I think we're seeing it being a lot of pressure for the players. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And there's also pressure on Maresca as well to get that first home Premier League win. So Brighton is not the ideal team to be rolling up when you're in that situation. But yeah, I that's why I'm saying he's still going to be searching for that first home Premier League win come October because I don't
Yeah,
think we
man.
beat Brighton.
Well, if Prashant's
Yeah.
saying it, it means it's definitely not looking good that weekend. So I might just watch the replay instead. But yeah, man, I think that kind of wraps up the predictions for September's games, post international break. So we're basically saying not a fantastic month, especially with my predictions, but at least maybe we go through in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, we would like to hope we do, right?
It's at this point that I've just realized what we're going to name the episode, so hopefully we go with that. But I guess the you guys will find out when we upload. But yeah, I guess this is the We Burn Blue pod. Signing off for myself, Sharon. Thanks to Prashant, and I guess we'll get catch you guys in the next one.
Yep. Catch you guys on the flip side, and hopefully we have more clarity and we know what's happening with the Civil War.